Good day everyone, and welcome to the channel. It's Londononion here with a Back 4 Blood weapons review. And in this review, we're going to be looking at our first LMG, the RPK. Now, as part of today's discussion, we're going to be including my proposed weapon center deck build following the review. Now, although the stats and specs of the weapon speak for themselves, I will be giving my evaluation on the weapon's capabilities in combat. This will involve tactics that suit the weapon's strengths, and an overall score. Now, evaluation will take place on 4 main fronts: ammunition economy, crowd control, mutation deterrence, and pressure combat. Before we get started, it is important to note that a weapon's shortcomings can be supplemented with one's card selection, but evaluation will mainly be geared toward the weapon's base attributes. Additionally, one's character choice can make a weapon somewhat more forgiving, meanwhile difficulty selection can accentuate or soften the downsides. So starting off with the RPK's ammunition economy, which is essentially how long a weapon can practically last throughout a given level, the RPK is an automatic high magazine capacity weapon. Although the RPK is an automatic weapon, the fire rate is relatively slow when compared with other automatic weapons. However, in regards to ammo economy, this works in favor of the RPK as it provides a healthy level of control of ammo expenditure while maintaining control of the weapon. Performing single shots comes rather easy to the weapon. When facing off against Ridden, typically a single round will do for elimination, which is a good boost. But when considering monstrous or ferocious corruption cards, which are arguably the most common ones, this will yield more ammo expenditure per Ridden. The effective range for maximum damage is considerably high at 16 meters. Automatic fire will create moderate movement and require commensurate compensating adjustment. Moving on to crowd control. Depending on one's corruption cards and main events in a given stage, crowd control will be more or less an important constituent in one's survival. Higher difficulties will likely create a greater need for effective crowd control. The RPK has a significant advantage in crowd control due to its large magazine size of 40 rounds. As discussed earlier, the damage is typically high enough to merit a single round per Ridden, but even with 2 rounds per Ridden, the weapon still demonstrates high efficacy in eliminating a crowd, especially with higher numbers than usual. The major downfall of this weapon is the cumbersome reload speed, which is about the equivalent of watching paint dry. The RPK's penetration is decent, inflicting over half of its base damage to a second target within reasonable range, giving potential to one-shot, one-kill capability, or possibly more. This does not include corruption cards, however. Although the fire rate is slow compared to other automatic weapons, it is still reasonably fast enough to keep up with an impending crowd. While on the move, the RPK will struggle to some degree. The low mobility makes efficacy through a non-stop crowd difficult after the mag has been depleted. Additionally, the low accuracy and considerably wide crosshairs make hipfire rather unreliable. The only way to minimize this is by crouching, which will only reduce one's speed and prolong their time in combat. At the point of reload, an effective and efficient secondary will be necessary, unless the magazine lasts the duration. Moving on to pressure combat, as I coined the term, this refers to how efficiently a weapon can eliminate targets in multiple areas, or how well a weapon can complement one's ability to engage and eliminate multiple scattered targets at varying ranges. Now, the RPK has very good effective range, meaning that pressure combat can begin at far range if one has the dexterity, or the proper optics to optimize ease of use. Given how easy single fire is to perform with this weapon, long-range shooting is not too much of a demand. As discussed with crowd control, the large magazine size is an advantage with pressure combat. Mixed with the long range and dependable damage, the RPK can do well with scattered targets, but the greatest detractor is the reload speed, which is only inevitable with enough pressure. Pressure at such volumes, however, are more of a significant minority occurrence than majority. As for mutation deterrence, the RPK has some efficacy in dealing with mutations. Being able to inflict continuous damage will usually suffice for a given mutation. With its range, this will allow any RPK user to be proactive in dealing with mutations. The weapon is best suited for a mixed strategy of kiting and fighting. Even though it is an automatic weapon, mid-range is the sweet range while far range is the proactive option. Short range with the RPK will likely result in guaranteed damage, even with automatic fire. The weapon does not provide much stumble, but this is compensated by its magazine size. Moving on to the scoring, the weapon's ammo economy is in the median range. Having such a high magazine capacity will consequently create a demand on ammunition. However, it has controllable fire, decent damage, and only requires moderate adjustment during automatic fire. Corruption cards, however, will alter the economy of this weapon. So I give it a 3 out of 5. Crowd control is the RPK's main area of strength. The damage, magazine capacity, effective range, and ease of use all create an effective crowd controller. The reload speed and mobility are the main downsides and may require a strong and effective secondary to compensate. So I give it a 4 out of 5. Pressure combat and mutation deterrence is an area of decent performance. The RPK can handle an onslaught longer than most other weapons and is capable of doing so from further away. The reload speed, yet again, is the main disadvantage. Mutations are a similar story, provided one is proactive enough, as chances are, firing on mutations will take its time, but the magazine capacity can handle any mutation, and sometimes more, with a single mag. One must use the effective range and extended magazine to their advantage, especially to compensate for the fire rate. So I give it, in total, a 7 out of 10. Overall, this puts the weapon at 14 out of 20. Now, that concludes the review, but we will now transition into our deck build for this weapon. Now, generally I would say there are two aspects of building a weapon/weapon class specific deck. There is the more strength-based build, and the compensatory/balancing build. A third option would naturally be a hybrid, which is probably the most reasonable, but every weapon is different and has its own strengths and areas of need to varying degrees. Now, with this in mind, on a smaller scale, I will categorize potential card selections into 4 designations: related, compensatory, synergistic, and preferential. Although Back for Blood already has its own designations for cards, I prefer to use my own. And before we get started, it is important to note that there are 1,000 ways to build a deck. The most I can do is showcase how I prefer to optimize this weapon's performance. So starting off with the related cards. Related cards are the ones that directly impact/buff the attributes or effects of a given weapon/weapon class. The cards in this category are Meat Grinder and Tactical Vest. Meat Grinder grants a 30% increase in move speed and accuracy while crouched and using an LMG. Tactical Vest grants a 30% increase in rifle ammo capacity and 10% increase in damage for assault rifles and LMGs. As discussed in our review, the RPK suffers from low accuracy and has rather wide crosshairs. Crouching while employing this card will make a considerable difference in hipfire reliability. Having additional move speed while in this state is a small compensation to the movement penalty that comes with crouching. As for Tactical Vest, having additional damage and greater reserve ammo will help this weapon, so I choose to employ both cards. Now moving on to the Compensatory Cards. Compensatory cards are meant to counteract the weapon's main weaknesses or balance out its areas of need. In the RPK's case, its main areas of need, according to the stats, are handling, mobility, and accuracy. Personally, I'm not particularly bothered by the weapon's handling. Its ease of use for single shots puts its correction lower on my priority list. Compensating for mobility and accuracy, however, can create significant changes for the weapon. The cards to aid with this are Hellfire and Hunker Down. Hellfire grants a 45% increase in move speed while firing and 5% while not firing. Hunker Down increases damage resistance by 10% and accuracy by 40% when crouching. With such a high magazine capacity, Hellfire's 45% increase in move speed, especially when taking on crowds while on the move, will provide an exceptional boost to movement. This can also help while crouching, which actually works together with Meat Grinder, but I wouldn't call this a synergistic card in this context. Hunker Down will add on to the accuracy already applied with Meat Grinder, which will allow hipfire to be much more reliable and allow strategic use of it. The last area of compensation is of course the reload speed. The card I choose to address this is Admin Reload, which grants an automatic reload of one's weapon being stowed away. This saves one from the burden of reloading while remaining offensively capable with their secondary. Moving on to the Synergistic Cards, these are cards that have impacts to increase areas of strength or work to optimize the effects of other cards or one's choice of character. Now the cards I chose were Confident Killer, Shredder, and March for Death. Confident Killer grants a 1% increase in damage for every mutation killed and stacks up to 15% for the duration of a given level. And Marked for Death increases damage by 10% to pinged enemies. Shredder grants a 1% increase in damage with every round that hits a given target and stacks up to 15. However, this is a time-sensitive card, and after 3 seconds, the damage will reset and one will have to restack it all over again. Theoretically, all of these added up with the inclusion of Tactical Vest, one can inflict an additional 50% damage. The last synergistic card I choose to apply is Medical Professional, which enhances first aid kits and defibrillators to heal 15 units of trauma and add 1 extra life. But the choice behind this will become more clear later in the discussion. Our last area of card selection is the Preferential Cards. These are cards that are completely unrelated to the weapon and its strengths/weaknesses, but are still a useful perk, and this is where the most nuance can take place. Given that we have 6 slots left, I choose to give it to Grenade Pouch, Body Armor, Durable, Ammo Mule, Ammo Scavenger, and Down in Front. Grenade Pouch grants an extra offensive throwable. Durable increases trauma resistance by 15% and health by 5 units. Body Armor increases trauma resistance by 25%, but reduces ammo capacity by 15%. Ammo Mule grants a 75% increase in ammo capacity but comes with a 5% movement penalty. However, this is already compensated for with Hellfire's 5% increase in movement speed. Down in Front eliminates friendly fire, both given and received, while crouched, and buffs health by 10 units. Lastly, Ammo Scavenger increases the frequency of ammo spawns. Now, as I said, this is where the most nuance can take place. Ammo Scavenger and Grenade Pouch are options depending on one's character selection. The alternative would be Ammo Stash in place of Grenade Pouch. Ammo Stash grants infinite ammo for one's secondary but reduces reload speed by 20%, but this is nullified by Admin Reload. From a team-based perspective, this will reduce one's ammo consumption by relying more on their secondary. Generally, the holder of an LMG is meant to provide suppressive fire and fulfill the role as an anchor for a given team. When everybody else fails or is being overwhelmed, the machine gunner keeps everything afloat. With that in mind, I had chosen Durable and Body Armor to reduce trauma. Now, our last area of discussion is the character choice. Given our card selections for this weapon, it primarily fits with Doc and Mom. I will also include Hoffman, who would be taking on the alternative build in the preferential card discussion. Both Mom and Doc act as a backbone to a given team, with perks geared toward preservation, which is what this weapon is built for, but with a more offensive nature. As for Hoffman, he has buffs towards longevity and preparedness, particularly with ammo and throwables. Mom, Doc, and Hoffman are different sides to the same coin. Holly could fit into this build, but may benefit from slightly different card selections. But as I said guys, there's 1,000 ways to build a weapon-centered deck. These were just my preferences. Otherwise though, that concludes the build. Thank you guys for joining me on this one, and in our next video, we'll be reviewing the MP5 SMG, and we'll also be discussing my preferred deck build for said weapon. It's been Londononion, and I will see you guys next time.